being here. We have the folks that we here. Do you want to meet them? First, he literally just got here. His name is Mark Ruffalo. Come on out. May I introduce you to Miss Emma Stone? You're so far away. I want to come cuddle with you. You're so far away. Hi, thank you so much for being here this crazy time where every night is a new Q&A. Hi. See you all. So Emma, the first time you read the script and you met Bella Baxter, what did you think about her? What about her cried out to you?
Oh, it was before I read the script. It was after we shot The Favorite, Yorgos told me about this, and it's based on an incredible novel by Alasdair Gray. And so I met Bella Baxter earlier, and then about 2 years later I read the script. And everything about her from the beginning of hearing about the character and what she's experiencing and how it's all, this is really echoey. It's like hearing your voice on a voicemail. That's what I sound like. Shit. It's very echoey. It was just everything about her. The idea that you could start anew and experience everything for the first time, and go really far in one direction and then decide that you are done with that and move on and teach yourself all of this, especially as a woman. It was really inspiring to me.
As a producer, why was it important to you to tell this story?
I think for all of the reasons that I just mentioned, and having worked with Yorgos before, it felt like he and I had a friendship and a kinship where we were able to talk about everything, and I wanted to be privy to all parts of the building of the world of Poor Things, and because it was 4.5 years from when we first spoke about it to when we made it, it was really important to just to know everything that was going on, to be able to weigh in and be a voice for it, and so I guess all the reasons I just mentioned. Yeah.
And I understand that you and Yorgos, it is echoey, you're right. You and Yorgos approached Mark about playing this role. What was it about Mark that told you he could do this, that he'd be perfect for this role?
Mark, what is it about you that's perfect for this role? What would you say are your qualities that make sense for this role? Just the top 10. 5. Do I have to hand you the mic?
Wait, is there a mic for you?
I was waiting for the mic. Thanks.
I feel like the better question is Mark, how did you feel when approached for this role? Maybe I should ask you that instead of what qualities do you think?
I think you got the wrong guy. That was the first thing that came to my mind. Shouldn't I be reading for Max? I really didn't see myself in this part, to be totally honest. And I said that to Yorgos, and then he said, "You're him." And that was the end of that discussion. Pretty much. Do you remember it like that?
I don't remember but that might have been a one-on-one. No, I think with Mark, when we were talking about who would be, I'm just going to push back a little bit. Okay, sorry, we're really adjusting a lot of things. Then I can look at both.
I don't have a foot steps.
Do you mind? That really
You want to switch?
Went up there.
I'm okay not to have one.
How does that look?
Really good. Surprisingly good. I think, well, first of all, Mark is such an unbelievable actor, as we all know. And I've been lately, don't hear laughs, lately in love with him for a long time. You ever seen You Can Count on Me? Ooh. And then all the way when you're going through all this stuff, and they see Foxcatcher, and you're like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, you know, it's like, and before that, I was like, Zodiac, and 13 going on 30. He does all this stuff with Hannah Lonergan, like he did all his plays, and you know, he's incredible. And everything, not everything, but a lot of what I've seen him do was like very earthy and, you know, grounded. And then reading Duncan, I think we were just thinking like, can you imagine if this empathetic, lovable heart of a man were to play this deeply narcissistic, toxic male? And he was like constantly, you know, going through all of this, and how layered and complicated that would make the character, because you just love him even though he's such a buffoon. And then Mark was like, that's a bad idea. And then Yorgos was like, no, it's not. And he was like, okay. And so every day was kind of like a flip between him going, ugh, this is terrible, it's so bad, what am I doing? And then it's like rolling, and he's like, hello! Like, it was so crazy to watch the dichotomy of like, he's in one extreme to the other extreme the whole time, so committed and so good, but then he's like, no, why am I even doing this? And back. It was incredible. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, it was obvious, it had to be Mark.
Where did it happen?
Which part? It's all based on a true story.
That's the Hulk changing part, right? The back and forth, that's where they come from. But Mark, because there is this lovely, sweet side to you, it makes us not totally hate Duncan, right? So how did you tap into that to not make us think he was a deplorable, idiotic, toxic buffoon?
Because he's just a really nice guy. He's got a heart of gold. Honestly, I don't know what I did. All I know is that when she tells him that she's already engaged to Max McCandless, that breaks him in two. And he just never really recovers that. It's just straight down after that. And that was just a total accident that we came to know what that was going to be, because we never talked about the part. We never talked about the script. Right? I mean, you did, I didn't. And if I tried, you're just like, So we sort of we're just feeling our way through, literally and figuratively. Not figuratively.
It has been so fun and so freeing, though, compared to everything you had done prior to this. Like, what thing did it trigger in you that was like exciting to tap into?
Everything that I want to do, but I can't. I mean, it's just the kind of just reckless, disastrous, pulling the ship as close as you can to the reef without actually wrecking it on the reef. It just being as kind of self-destructive as I possibly could as an actor, and destroy anyone's thought of what Mark Ruffalo was before, was the motivating and animating factor behind the whole thing.
That's exciting.
It was a blast.
What you're both doing is kind of like pulling the boat too close to the reef. But what you're doing as well, Emma, is so raw and so exciting and so distinct from one stage to the next as far as Bella's evolution. So what was the most challenging of all of those stages for you?
Thank you. The beginning. The beginning was the most challenging. I think having sat with the idea of the character for so long, having talked about all the aspects for so long, and then actually starting day one, I think how many people in this audience are actors? Oh shit, okay. So you know at the beginning of something, when it's like the first day of school and then you're gonna start and you're like, okay, great, like I'm psyched up, and then you actually start and you're like, that's what I meant to do? You know, there's just this idea in your head, and then when you actually have to externalize it, at least for me, maybe everyone who raised their hands has never felt this way, and I salute you if you haven't, but I think like the first couple days or week of doing something, playing a part, it's excruciating no matter what, because you're getting your sea legs, and it's just never going to match up to what you have in your mind. And then you have to be in a state of constant acceptance that that you're still human and you're not a robot and you can't do it perfectly. And that's the good thing about being an actor, is there is no perfect. It's cool that we're not Olympians and that you can't measure it. Even though they keep acting like you can measure this, or you can like say one person is better at it than another, which is just impossible because everyone's so specific and different, and another person would play this part totally differently and probably way better, but what's better? I don't know. Anyway, this is the meltdown I've been having on a nightly basis at 3 a.m. lately. But that was the hardest part at the beginning, because it's such a primitive state, and it sets her off on the course of the rest of it. And we had marked it out in stages. We had turned it into like 5 stages, Yorgos and I, in delineating her progress. And it was only at the beginning that we were shooting chronologically, so we shot the beginning and the end. And then we shot the middle all after that. So it was like, all right, let's figure out where she starts and where she ends up, and then we're gonna figure out the middle as we go. And I think, yeah, I kind of tortured myself for that first part of it.
Those are extremes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because she's so primitive at the start and so incredibly eloquent by the end.
Yeah.
So was it just whiplash for you to have to make that giant shift and not do it gradually?
Kind of. I mean, we had worked on it, we had rehearsed it, we had sort of figured out how she walks, how she talks, what the dialogue was with Tony, like working out all of that, and the script was so beautifully written that it was like you could figure out the way her speech is evolving, but her, I don't know, internal sort of stuff, that was an interesting thing to jump between those two without knowing the middle yet in actual practice.
And Duncan evolves too. You know?
Duncan devolves. No offense.
Yes.
But it's fascinating. I noticed the second time I watched it, like he begins to adopt her language, right? He's so swaggering and so confident, so sure of himself, and then he's like needy about the furious jumping, right? And then that's fascinating to me how that dynamic shifts. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, everything about Duncan is kind of this projection or some manufactured idea of what he thinks a man should be, or I'm free, I'm in a free love, and I'm, you know, these petty bourgeois. He sees him as this libertarian, but what he really is just a super conventional, totally insecure, vulnerable baby man. And once he finally, I think, really is confronted with love, it all just falls apart. and all of his bravado, all of this masculine macho stuff is really just covering the most terrified, broken, hungry, desperate, sad person. Sound familiar? Who? Never mind.
Let's talk about the dance scene. So fun. It's just a little microcosm of their relationship and of how everyone regards Bella, right? They're all like drawn to how fiery she is, because they would jump after her and control her and put her in a cage. I want to hear about choreographing it and blocking it out and what that shooting that section was like.
Constanza McCross, who did the choreography on The Favorite between Rachel Weisz and Joe Alwyn in that scene, came to Budapest where we were shooting and brought dancers with her, and we rehearsed and came up with all of these moves, and Yorgos would kind of watch and be like, oh, yes, no, whatever, or what would feel right to us, like would she be feeling this way at this point in the story, or how would he come into it and all of that. So we rehearsed it quite a lot for a very long time for how crazy that scene looks. You would think it would be a little more refined, but that's not the characters. But yeah, no, that was a blast. Did you have fun with that dance?
A little. I had, when we were doing it, it was the most fun ever, but learning it was very difficult for me.
Why?
It wasn't? Yorgos told me I was a terrible dancer. But that's why I was so good. You're a terrible dancer. Oh, but that's why you're so good.
It's all impulse.
It's like a Zen koan. It's like one hand clapping. I get it. Yeah. It was, it's their whole relationship, really, in a physicalized performance. And it was so much fun. And it was so crazy. And, we knew the dance moves, but at the end of the day, how those characters really behaved was what we'd already been working on for so long. And so the dance was really an extension of them, but also what we brought to it in that moment. So it does feel very spontaneous. It does feel improvisational, because we were just playing the relationship at that point. We weren't really thinking about the dance anymore. We were just playing the relationships. And then it devolves into this fight. We didn't know what that fight was going to be. It was like, you jump on him, and you get on that guy, and then you guys will end up here, and then a bunch of background people are going to run in and try to pull you away, and then at some point you guys got to run off, and that was basically how we blocked that scene. And it was just chaos. And it was a wide shot. We did it in one take, and it was like, we probably did it twice. Never mind.
No, I was just gonna say there is one point where Robbie, remember, he said, because Yorgos doesn't shot list. Yorgos and Robbie, Ryan, RTP, they don't shot list. So like at the beginning of the day, they're sort of like, all right, maybe we'll go here, and then we'll figure this out from here, which is kind of amazing for how visual and how, composed everything is that they don't shot list. So at one point, Yorgos is like, all right, Robbie, let's just get in there, like with a handheld, but it's a fisheye handheld. And then I kicked Robbie, and they kept it in the movie. When I got on the guy's back, Robbie's like, ooh, here I go, and I was like, boom, accidentally kicked Robbie, and they're like, let's keep it in. So it was more than one shot, and I did accidentally kick the camera. But that's fun, it's part of the kerfuffle, I like that. Magic movies. Wow. That story really landed. Yeah. That was a
Nailed it with that.
I'll use that in the future. Thanks so much. That's my type 5.
You mentioned how composed it all is. Like, this world is wondrous. Every detail is so specific and so wild. How did all the production design help you guys get into character and tell the story?
Really good at this.
Mark, stop. Earmuffs. Oh my god. The productions, James and Shona, our production designers, had never worked together before. And they were sort of like thrust together in this experiment of two production designers working in tandem. And the world that they created was so unbelievable. All of it, I would say 95% of this film is on sound stages that were built, with the exception of, there's one outdoor scene where God and Max take Bella to see the outside world, and then Lisbon was built inside, or the Lisbon dance scene was built inside of this sound stage. Other than that, everything was built. And it was just like a true wonder to behold. It felt like it looks on screen. It was larger than life and so detailed and just beautiful. And for me, you know, playing Bella, to walk through all of these environments and see them in that way, because it does feel to me like it's how Bella sees the world. You know, it's obviously not the world as it is, although none of this is the world as it is, because the whole thing is not, it can't really happen. So, you know, it was all very fantastical from the beginning, but it was so incredible to look at all of this through that lens, and it was beautiful. Do you want to add anything to that?
I thought you did, you nailed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
See? Smattering of applause. A mercy applause.
I want to ask you about costumes though, but I want you to answer that one
Oh,
too.
I can
Can
talk
you talk about
about
costumes?
costumes.
I love
Oh,
what
yeah.
Bella wears, but can we talk about what Duncan wears too?
I had, first of all, the costumes were pretty amazing, but that was a big part. So we were rehearsing, and then we leave rehearsal and go to a costume fitting, and then come back. We had 3 weeks of rehearsal, and never did we talk about the script or the characters. We just played theater games for 3 weeks, right? We did interpretive dancing in slow motion and fast motion, both forward and backward. We wrestled, we sang, we wrestled, we danced, and we rolled around on the ground. And it was the most informative rehearsal process I've ever been through in my life. But while we were doing that, we were cutting away to go to these costume fittings. And those costume fittings started to tell you everything you needed to know about the character. And it was very collaborative. So Holly, who had also never done a movie. Oh, she had? She told me she never did a movie. Was she just saying that to me?
Stop recording. Stop recording.
Wrong movie.
Getting confused.
I got confused. She seemed like she never done a movie. Only in the best way. She was very fresh. What we were doing, we were. I'm just destroying this. I've been doing this for like 20 hours today. Okay. Thank you. These costumes were sort of telling you everything, and they were so beautiful, and we were able to collaborate during the whole thing. So at some point, it's like, I think I want to wear a corset. Do you want to wear a corset? Great. We'll get you a corset. Do you want to wear it? I want to wear it all the time. I think whenever he takes his clothes off, you should see his corset, because it's very cares about his figure. And then we're like, well, how about some butt pads too? And then how about some calf pads? And then how about some thigh pads? And all of a sudden, you know, this very bottom-heavy characters started to come. But that is how we were working. And Yorgos was, it's so strange because he's such a strong director, but at the same time, all he really tells you is, you're disappointing me. And then they'd come back and we'd do the costumer freak out for a minute, and then she'd come back and he's like, I like that. But during the course of that, we were really, everyone was sort of using everything they knew in their imagination and their creativity and their talent to sort of rise up to his vision for it. And so the costumes were this kind of fantastical imagination from Holly, based on what she thought she wanted from Yorgos. But really, what he does so beautifully is he allows his heads and his keys and his artists to really take it upon themselves to be as great as they can possibly be. And that's the magic of Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's a strange space because he's not letting you do whatever you want, but he's calling to you to do the greatest you are capable of doing.
Right, definitely, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Save that.
Yeah, that part, upload that. You got it? Okay, good, he's got it. He's got it, yeah, he's got it. Okay, great. Okay.
You didn't give up, Alice.
I didn't give up.
Everything Bella wears is so impossibly chic. Like, you must have loved every scene, every moment for that.
Well, one of the most beautiful, early on, I went to meet Holly a couple months before we even started rehearsals, and we were just doing like a play around, and I had seen, the boards and ideas of things that she had made, beforehand, and the way she was describing like, the fabrics and the shapes, the fabrics were things that reminded her of organs or things that would be in Baxter's house, and the colors were off in some ways, and the way that Bella's costumes evolve, whether they're silk and padded and white and she's at home, but it's like she's gonna get them messy, and Mrs. Prim is dressing her, and then when she moves into Lisbon, she's dressing herself, and so she's wearing these knickers, but she has them in a few different colors, and she's learning how to, everything was so meticulous and so inventive and just completely from her mind. It was all Holly's mind. And like the descriptors behind all of it, the condom cave in Paris where it's latex and she's, going to the brothel for the first time, and like everything was, it was super, super genius. I think she's a genius, I really do. And yes, to his point about Yorgos, one of the amazing things about him as a director, that every department head is hired, he wants to work with them because he wants to see what they want to create, because he's inspired by them and he wants to see what they're gonna do. And I think she just absolutely blew everyone away. Yeah.
One quick thing, and we'll do a few questions that I get to go. What was the most fun day on set?
The dance was pretty fun, even though we were exhausted, because it was 2 days and we did it like 150,000 times, I think. 151,000 times. But that was really, really fun.
That was a blast. I thought that whole sequence where you come in and you give the money away.
Oh, yeah.
And then I try to throw her overboard. The ship stuff was pretty fun. Throwing her overboard was, I had 105 fever.
It was not 105 more.
It felt like it.
Mark had a fever.
Tell any of my own stories.
You can, but you have to tell them honestly, Mark. You had like 99.6. And you were like, look, I have a fever. fever. I'm dying. It's like, it's 99.6. And you're like, that's basically 1 million.
It was 99.8. But I was dying. Anyway, I was sick. I was miserable.
105. You've been in the hospital.
102.
No, 99.6.
99.7. Anyway,
You're a pro.
I was a real pro. That was the one Yorgos said, came up to me at the end of that day, he said, I'm proud of you. And one little tear broke. And I hugged him. And he's like, no, go home and go to sleep.
In the midst of your hallucination from your 110 degree fever. That's not very cool.
We have time for like 3 questions.
Let's do it right here.
I'm big. I'm going as Bella for Halloween now, by the way. More specifically, the physicality for both of you. How did you prepare? Because, you know, in the beginning, her development of being a toddler, how did you get into that? And how did you prepare? And even for yourself, Mark, something that could be so broad and big was so specific and honest. How did you guys find that?
For me, the toddler thing, I tried to, you know, like watch some videos of toddlers walking, and we very quickly realized that was not the move. She's gaining 25 words a day, and her hair's growing an inch every 2 days. She's not a toddler. It's a metaphor, we realized very quickly. So it was much more staccato and kind of wind-up doll than child that we were thinking. And so as we were working out the physicality, it was that. It was sort of like, you know, trying different ways of walking on my feet or different movements, and then the way that evolves. And it was really just discovering a lot as we went to what felt kind of, you know, hopefully more original and less, you know, literal. But yeah, so it was just a lot of experimentation. Mark.
Thank you, Emma. So I
Your
think,
fever was 105. I'm sorry. I know he's hurt by it.
no, it's just like, how am I gonna go home and answer to this?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Like, I think that my favorite acting style is one foot on a banana peel and the other in a grave. And so for me, it was trying to maintain that kind of splits and to see how far it could go out physically and be kind of push the limits, like I was saying. But at the same time, trying to keep one foot on the ground, in the grave, so to speak. And because of that rehearsal process and really getting to explore kind of the physical world and some of the references that Yorgos was giving me, which were these dance companies, debauched and the Peeping Tom dance company is a Belgian dance company, I got an idea of how far I could take that physically, but also just didn't want it to go over the edge, but wanted to see how far I could. And it goes over the edge in some places, but you know, we pulled it back, you know, relatively quickly. So yeah, that was the plan. Anyway.
Hello. What's the name of the back? Really far in the back. Who in the back is a question? Really? Okay, we'll come closer. Red hair right here. Yes, you. Hi.
Okay, first of all, this is the second time I saw it. Loved it. I want to just say something about Willem Dafoe. He was amazing. The bubbles coming out, I don't know if that was real. That's not my question though. Maybe you can comment on that, but you really, both of you, and especially you, Emma, you put yourself out there. I mean, you were completely open. And how do you prepare for something like that? Being naked and just like full, just like everything. I mean, you know.
Being naked is easy to prepare for because you just take off all of it. Well, yeah. Willem is, we love him very much, and he's just, as much as Mark was like the total opposite of Duncan, and not that Willem's not the opposite of Baxter, but he's like the most obvious choice ever. You read Baxter and you're like, it has to be Willem Dafoe. You know, like it's not even like you're like, of course, who else is gonna play this in this way? And he is so perfect and human, and all of those prosthetics, like what he's able to do in that character is beautiful. And the bubbles were VFX. That was one of the VFX moments. So they would just clap on set when the bubble popped so we could all react. Yeah, it was fun. In terms of the preparation or for putting yourself out there, I think for me, obviously never having done anything like this to this extent before, I guess everything is sort of, to me, in anything I've done in service to the character and what the character's going through and the way that the story is going to be told, and I loved the way that the story was told and was a big part of how the story was told. So for me it was, I don't know, I guess it wasn't that challenging. And again, it's easy because you just, all you do is just, how did you feel?
I had a much harder time with it. I had my corset. I've done a couple sex scenes over the years. No, not. It's always kind of, it's much better if it's a comedy than if it's serious. It's so much better. Yeah, having to do like serious sex scenes is just, I mean, you're actors, you've done it, it's not like that awesome. Maybe you should ask yourself why. It's so weird, it was an intimacy coordinator who's like literally back there after you're doing a scene, like, totally getting me too'd, but intimacy coordinator, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
She was amazing, by the way. But yes, it is. Yeah.
Let's do one more. In the brown sweater right there with glasses. Yes, you. Hi.
I noticed that there's a lot of themes in the movie, and I picked up on a lot, and I noticed that you sort of talked about it a bit, but I was just wondering what's like the main thing that you want people to take away when they watch this movie?
That is a very good question, and one that, unfortunately, I do not have an answer to personally because, well, a couple things. There are a ton of themes in this movie. Oh, sorry, she was saying that there are a lot of themes in this movie. Tell me if I'm misrepeating this. There are a lot of themes in this movie, and she picked up on multiple, but was wondering what we wanted the audience, or we individually, or as a collective, wanted the audience to take away as like the major theme of this film. Okay. And it's a great question, and yes, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of themes within the book, and there's a lot of themes within the film. The film and the book have a good amount of differences in the way that it's presented, and which I think is typical a lot of the time for films that are adapted from books. But that's a hard question to answer in the sense of twofold. One is that because there are a lot of themes, there's lots of different lanes to go down, so it would be hard to answer with one major overall one. Secondly, part of the sort of Yorgos world, if you've seen multiple films of his, is asking more questions than it answers. And one of the things that I think he really loves in his storytelling, and one of the reasons why I'm drawn to his storytelling, is that it sort of leaves it open-ended for the audience to have many different feelings about all of it, and none of them are wrong. It's like, some people are like, this part too much, fucking hate it. Some people are like, that part was the most meaningful to me. That part that they just said they hated. And everyone comes from different backgrounds and has different experiences, and all of it is valid and understandable. So I would be doing it a disservice, I think, to say what I hope you take away from it. But yes, there are a lot of things, and this feels like I'm evading and deflecting, and you know.
You did that really well. Yeah. No.
Sorry.
I totally agree. I mean, I've heard so many different takes on it, and that's kind of what I think is so great about it. And a good piece of art lets you bring yourself to it. Doesn't dictate a feeling or tells you what you're supposed to take away from it, I think, and that's something that is really important to Yorgos, and I've heard him say that more than once, so I hope you guys each had a good experience of it.
And you did it, that's okay too. That's sorry. Thank you very much.